because it's full of inaccuracies, as we know. And if there was some way that we could extend the PPS number information in that respect, it would certainly be a big help. Now, I want to conclude again by welcoming the bill, and I also want to commend Minister Burton for the proactive approach she has taken in addressing these matters.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Deputy Luke Ming Flanagan has 20 minutes.
Thank you, Chairperson. The first thing I'd like to put on the record is that there's nearly 500,000 people unemployed, and this sort of feeling is going out there again that I don't know who's putting it out there, but it's in the media that somehow this 500,000 people, well, they don't really want to work. Well, that the 500,000 people who are unemployed don't want to work. Okay, I think they do want to work. That's the point. Without interruption, maybe.
The Speaker, please.
Yeah, but there is this impression being given that, you know, by some people, and by a lot of people actually, that somehow these people are on the dole because they don't want to do anything else. Now, maybe someone might have been able to throw that at people in the 80s without being able to contradict it definitively, but we can contradict it definitively now, because the vast, vast majority of these people who are unemployed were working when there was work. So it isn't that they're unemployed because they're lazy or anything like that, it's because they can't get work. Now, you talk about helping people get back to work, which is very, very important, and it is essential. But one of the most important parts of helping people to get back to work is that there actually be work there in the first place, and that the environment is created whereby that work is there. And if it's there, you will find that you don't need to push people out the door. They will go out to work. Whether that be because they're sick at looking at Dr. Phil repeats on the telly, or whether because they don't have a red cent in their pocket. They want to go out to work. Simple as that. They do. I've met them. I met a man in my office a couple of weeks ago, big man, with tears running down his face. He said he was going insane at home because he had already done, I think it was 6 years or something on the FOSS scheme. He'd done his maximum amount term. He's a machine driver. He was willing to do it for nothing, but they can't get anything for him. And like this is a mental health issue as well. People are suffering because they're bored as well as everything else. I know you're aware of that, but for that reason we need to do something about it. Now, we hear that unemployment is going down, and that is, you'd have to say, one of the major reasons for that is because people are leaving the country in their droves. And you can't deny that. If the people who emigrated did not emigrate, unemployment figures would not be down. It's like as if in the morning, if we had a tsunami in this country, and half the population, God forbid, was wiped out, the government would come out a couple of weeks later and go, well, guess what? The unemployment figures are down. Well, they're all dead, but really, that isn't kind of the way you should be trying to achieve it. So if you want to get the employment figures down, how's about trying to do it while keeping people in the country? Because really, people would like to stay here. They like to stay in their own country. It isn't for leisure reasons that they go abroad. The 19 out of the 20 in my household and my wife's household who had to emigrate down through the years all did so because they had no choice. But it appears that you are making positive strides, though, towards making it more likely that people will create work, entrepreneurial people, by tinkering somewhat with the system whereby maybe sometime in the future they won't be denied social welfare. Because as many people have said here, and I think everyone agrees on this, that people who are of entrepreneurial spirit should be encouraged. And those people now, who no more they come to everyone's office, they come into my office, and the story is, your man next door to me didn't even work during the boom, and now he's getting something, and I'm getting nothing. You need to move fast and change that situation, because it is not on, and it doesn't encourage people to create work, which is something that I'm sure that you would be only delighted to do. There is then the situation with many of these people, and I'm sure they've come to everyone in this chamber as well, whereby they try to get back to work and they apply to get some contract on building something, and they're told, no, you can't because you don't have a turnover, in some cases, of hundreds of thousands of euro. So, because it's like a catch-22 situation for them. Even though they're well qualified to do the work, they're knocked out on the basis that they weren't working already and they don't have the turnover. So if there's anything that can be done to change that, please do, because it's not fair on those people. Now, in the last couple of weeks, the major employer in my town, in Castlereagh, Harmac Medical, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention the name, but they're a company that employ hundreds of people in my town. Their HR section got on to me and asked could I highlight the fact that for the last 6 months they had been looking to fill 12 part-time positions, and 6 months later they haven't succeeded. Now, there is something here, like, it's very easy just to criticise you, to try and get PR from running down the government, but if you're doing something good, you deserve praise on it. And I'm hoping what you're planning on doing for single parents will help this situation, because in Harmac Medical at the moment, they have on offer 5 days work, 3 days a week, during the time when maybe people might be at school, kids would be at school, and maybe there might be a few spare hours for that parent, which would pay them €187 for their 15 hours, and still they'd be able to go back and mind the kids afterwards. Or someone else on the social welfare system. I'm not sure how that would work with what you're planning for single parents, but I hope it would rectify that situation. But there is a problem with the social welfare system in general, whereby it's so rigid that the idea that you shouldn't be able to go out and get 3 hours work a day, because if you work 1 hour, you lose all your payments. That needs to change. They also have other positions which involve working 2 12-hour shifts at the weekend, which pay £12.50 an hour, not minimum wage, which will be worth €300 a week to these people. But no one will, they cannot get the positions taken up by anyone, because it's my understanding that if you're working over, is it 19 hours, that you wouldn't be entitled to anything for the week. That's their understanding of it anyway. So what I'm saying is there needs to be a change to the social welfare system in order that it actually caters for these situations. Because I don't really actually think there's anyone out there on social welfare if they felt they could maybe do a few hours work, if there was a few hours work available to them, that it wouldn't hit their social welfare completely, and that they would get some gain out of it. And it brings me around to thinking that maybe we should look at an idea which was suggested by the Milltown Jesuit Institute and Father Sean Healy years ago. I presume they're still pushing the same idea, that idea of a guaranteed basic income. And some people will trash that and say, sure, how can you give everyone a payment? Well, the reality is, if you went with some sort of a system like that, where everyone in the country was guaranteed, of adult age, was guaranteed a minimum payment, and then you work on any work you get on top of it, it eventually gets taxed out of you, so you actually don't get that money. But it does create a situation whereby, let's say we had that now, and if you were on you had no work, or you were on social welfare as it would be seen as now, and you had a guaranteed basic income, it would mean you could take up that job because you're gaining all the time. Obviously, it would lead to implications for the tax system and higher taxes in certain senses, but it would mean that no one would be disincentivized from working. And it would mean that if you had an idea that you wanted to go off and do something that you thought might make money for you, that you wouldn't have to think, okay, will I make more money than I'm going to lose? So it makes the system less rigid. Now look, I don't have all the answers on this. In fact, I probably don't even have close to all the answers on it. But it is an idea that I think needs to be discussed, because if you have in a place like Castlereagh, and I'm sure, Minister, you're well aware, places like Castlereagh have dire unemployment levels, to think at the same time that there's actually work out there that people can take up, I think you really, really need to do something about that. Because not only will you increase these people's income, you will improve their self-esteem because they'll actually be adding to the community, and they'll be paying tax. Now, I don't agree with people when they talk about how we have to think about the taxpayers and sort of separate them from people who aren't working as if they don't put anything into society. It's citizens in general that we should be looking out for. But something needs to actually be done to make it possible, whereby if there is work, you can go out and take casual work and you don't lose your social welfare. Now, it was mentioned by one of the deputies here about the cuts to Farm Assist. Well, at the moment, negotiations, they're well advanced at this stage on the Common Agricultural Policy are going on. If proposals by organisations such as the United Farmers Association were listened to, and payments under the Common Agricultural Policy were capped at €35,000 per farmer, it would actually bring close to €92 million back to the less well-off farmers, and would actually give them an income that would actually save you money in many cases on Farm Assist. And then this money that the smaller farmer has been told to wait for on Pillar 2, the matching funding that now would be dubious enough as to whether you can find it or not, the money that you would save on Farm Assist can be put towards that, and overall you have a better package for everyone. Now, during the term of this government, I think there was a major mistake made when it came to cutting fuel allowance. I'm not saying you shouldn't have cut the amount that it cost you. No problem with that, genuinely no problem with that. But I do have a problem with the fact that you didn't seem to be open to the whole idea that if you gave that money to people in one lump, they could actually get way better value out of it without it costing the state any more. They could go out maybe and purchase a few trailer loads of turf, or they could go out and get a deal from one of the co-ops on briquettes. I know it for a fact, you can get a better deal if you've got a big lump of money to give them and it comes cheaper. So while at the same time you could have saved the money, you wouldn't have actually increased the hardship on the person. And that's something I would love to see you do this time. And also the whole idea of, we had a couple of people onto us in our office about the idea of front-loading social welfare payments so someone can get a business started, rather than them basically just having to stay on the dole or social welfare indefinitely. Now, there was talk about how people were reluctant to take up courses. Now, who knows why they are, but I suppose one could surmise that one of the reasons why they may be reluctant to take up training is that they don't see it as relevant, and that there's nothing at the end of it. And training for training's sake is kind of a demoralising thing to have to do. And we need to get away from that. And I heard people say that we need to train people who are in the building industry to do other jobs. And that is 100% correct. And then I heard in the last week in the news that apparently the government are looking at putting €1 billion into shovel-ready projects. Now, I know many of these projects might be important, but isn't it time we stopped looking at something that involves concrete as the only thing that is shovel-ready? There's a lot of shovel-ready projects out there that don't involve building or don't involve using a shovel. There are shovel-ready projects involved with working with young people, providing youth services. I've had several organisations connected with the youth come to me and say that their funding has been cut. So we cut their funding, we cut the amount of people who are working with them, and then we get that money and we put it into building, more building. Have we not done enough building in this country for a while? Could we not start thinking about shovel-ready projects that will actually help people in more ways than just getting them mixing concrete? I think you need to look at that as well. So that's what I have to say on it, and I hope my tuppence worth maybe was worth something to you.
Thank you, Deputy. Deputy Brendan Ryan, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Lasky Hurley. I welcome the opportunity to speak on this bill in the House today. There are many provisions in this bill that I could comment upon, but I will concentrate on just a few. I, like others, welcome the change in this bill, which ensures that part-time or retained firefighters will no longer miss out on job seekers' payments because of a requirement that they reside near to the stations. The practical solution put forward in this bill will ensure that the proximity clause in itself does not render a claimant unavailable for full-time employment under the Welfare Code, provided they meet the other